Hello everyone, it's Gina from Orchid and Opal.com, and I'm back today with a tutorial, the first in the series that I'm doing for the September Gina's Picks 2021 with Eureka Crystal Beads. And today's bracelet is going to be the classic Russian spiral. I've done a couple of Russian spiral jewelry tutorials here that I will try to link in the corner as well. I haven't done one yet that has 4 different stripes or 4 different beads that alternate with the 11O seed beads. And I haven't done one yet where we have completed it with the bead caps. So this will include those couple of differences if you haven't tried either of those things yet. As usual, everything will be linked and listed down below, including the quantities you need and the specific materials that I am using today. We're going to start out with a comfortable length of beading thread. I like to use the 6-pound FireLine. You can use whatever it is you're comfortable with, and I'll be using a size 10 beading needle. This bracelet's going to come to approximately 8 inches with the toggle clasp and the whole setup that I'm using today. And that's pretty much going to use up the entire strand of the Pyrite and the Moonstone if you pick those 2 items up. As you go, we're just going to be continuing to create length on this bracelet so you can keep beading until you are comfortable with the amount of length that you have. And you'll see that as you get going. But to get started, go ahead and thread your beading needle with a comfortable length of thread, and we will jump into this tutorial. Alright, so as you can see, I have all my beads laid out here, and I like to lay out the beads, except for the 11O seed beads, in the order that I want my stripes to be on my spiral, because that helps me to go from one bead to the next and remember what order I'm supposed to be beading in. So lay out those 4 different beads however you want your spiral to be laid out. This is the one that will look like the bracelet you saw finished at the beginning. And of course, we'll need a lot of our 11O seed beads since they are going to be spiraling up the entire way as we add these other beads in. Now, if you've done the Russian spiral beading stitch before, this will be pretty easy for you. And if you've never done it before, just take your time. Don't be discouraged if you mess up. I still have to revisit what I'm supposed to do with beading stitches if I haven't done them in a while, and I still make mistakes all the time too. So don't worry about that. They're just beads, and that's all part of learning. But this is going to start out just like this would start with a 3-bead striped variety of Russian spiral. So we're going to pick up our 1 moonstone first, or that larger bead, followed by 2 seed beads, followed by an 8O in the seafoam and 2 seed beads, then the pyrite, 2 seed beads, and an 8O and 2 seed beads. So this is what you want to have on your needle to get started. And then you're going to slide all these beads down to your tail thread. And I'm going to leave a pretty generous tail thread this time. I'm going to leave maybe 10 inches because we may want to use that at the end, and that will help prevent us from having to add extra thread onto the end later. And you are welcome to put a stop bead right there if you want. Some people are more comfortable using one, some don't really need one. So just decide if that's right for you. You can add a stop bead to get yourself started. Now we're going to take our needle. We're going to go back through all of those beads once again and form these into a loop. So just go through all those beads again and go past that first bead a little bit. Go through a few at a time until you get there. And I'm going to go back through that first moonstone again. And then come out of the seed bead that's right after that. So you should have something like this so far. That is where we started. We looped all the way around and went past that first moonstone once again, passing through that and the first seed bead right after the moonstone. Now here's where you want to look and see which bead is coming up next. So ignore those seed beads, but which larger bead is coming up next? That's what you're going to pick up in the next step. So I have one of the seafoam green Miyuki 8Os. I'm going to pick that up. And then I'm going to pick up 2 11Os. And then I'm going to go through the 111O that is right after that next seafoam green. And I'm going to hold this with my thumb and my forefinger while I pull. And there's those 3 beads in place. Now again, looking at my working thread, which larger bead is coming up? That would be a pyrite. So we want to pick up one of those and 2 11-0 seed beads. Then we're going to do the same thing and go through just the single seed bead that is right after the next pyrite. Holding that with your thumb and your forefinger and pull. And right now these beads are starting to sit on the outside of that ring, but eventually we want to form this into a tube where these new beads are stacking on top of that original loop. What larger bead is coming up next? That would be our 8-0. So pick that up and then pick up 2 11-0s. Then go through just the seed bead after the next 11-0. Hold that and pull. Just ignore that tail thread at the moment. What's coming up next? A moonstone. I'm going to pick one up. Going to pick up 2 11-0s. And this time you can see, because that moonstone is the 4th one we're picking up in this next round, we're going to need to step up. So we're going to go not only through that next seed bead right after the moonstone like we normally would, but we're also going to go through the next 8-0 and the next single seed bead, just like that. And we can pull. And you can start to train those newer beads that we added on that round to start sitting on top of that original round, but it's going to take several rounds of adding beads for that to actually start to form that rope shape without having to do too much finagling. After you've stepped up, we want to look ahead again, and the next larger bead that is coming up for us is now the pyrite. So we're going to pick up one of those. And then we're going to pick up 2 11-0s, and we can resume what we were doing before, which was just going through the single seed bead after that larger bead. And pull. Those beads are going to want to start to sit on the outside, so just start training them to stack upwards as you can. The next larger bead is one of our 8-0s, so we'll pick that up and 2 11-0s. And then we'll just go through the single 11-0 that is coming after that 8-0. Sometimes I stick my finger right on top of that bottom center row and pull and get that new row to start to shape up that way. As you can see, it's starting to do that. All right, what's coming up next for us? Another moonstone. We'll pick that up. Pick up 2 11-0s. Go through just the 11-0 after that moonstone. Pull. And now we need our 8-0 in the seafoam plus our 2 11-0s. And we'll go through the single seed bead after the next seafoam. It's just starting to form that more rope-like shape, and you can see that spiral starting to form with all of those larger beads. That is what you want to see. All right, now we've reached a point where we're going to need to step up again. If you look at your beadwork, we have 3 beads in each of those strips of the larger beads. So the pyrite, the 8-0s, the moonstone, they all now have 3 beads in place. So now we need to continue to build up, which means we're going to have to do the step up for the next row, which means instead of stopping there right before the pyrite, we're actually going to go through the next pyrite and the seed bead right after that and pull. Next, what you're going to do is continue on with the usual steps. So we have a Miyuki coming up. We'll pick one of those 8-0s up and 2 seed beads. Go through the single seed bead right after the next one. Give it a little turn. We have our Moonstone coming up next, so we'll pick that up. And our 2 seed beads. And we'll go through the seed bead right after the next Moonstone. Turn after we give it a good pull. Pick up an 8-0. 2 seed beads. Go through the next seed bead. And then this is where we're going to do our next step up again. We're going to still pick up the Pyrite and our 2 seed beads. And we're going to go through the seed bead right after the Pyrite, but instead of just that one, we're also going to continue to scoot through the next 8-0 and then the 11-0 right after that to step up and pull. And now we've got 4 of each bead on this little tube that's starting to form, and we'll keep going. This time we start with a Moonstone and our 2 seed beads. Then we'll go through the seed bead after the Moonstone. Turn. 8-0. 2 11-0s. Go through the single seed bead after the 8-0. Pull and turn. Pick up a Pyrite. 2 11-0s. Go through the single seed bead after the Pyrite. Turn. This is where we're going to need to step up. Another little hint for you is that you'll see that there's only a single seed bead showing up here after this 8-0. And you can see after these other larger beads, you have 3 seed beads. So when you get to that one where there's just one single seed bead right after that larger bead, that's when you're going to need to step up. We're still going to pick up that 8-0 with our 2 11-0s. But we're going to go through the single seed bead as well as the next larger bead, which is our Moonstone, as well as the 1 seed bead after that. Pull and turn. So continue in this manner until you have the desired length of your beadwork. Keep in mind that you'll be adding on the bead caps at the end, plus possible jump rings, plus a clasp, which will add about 1 inch to the length of the bracelet. But that is all there is to it. Just keep going in the same manner and we will meet back so that we can finish up the ends of our work. All right, everyone, obviously I'm not done with my beadwork and I'm back a little bit earlier, and that's because you're likely going to need to add on thread to your piece. And if you are newer or just want to see how I do that, I thought I'd show you real quick since I'm at the point where I'm going to need to add some more thread to my needle so I can continue on. First thing you want to do is you want to make a mental note of where your working thread is coming out, and mine is coming out the seed bead directly after this Pyrite at the top of the beadwork. And the reason you want to know that is because that's exactly where you want your working thread to be coming out when you add a new one so that you can continue on from the exact same place. What I'm going to do here is just go ahead and make a half hitch knot right after that seed bead that I am coming out of, just to secure that. Now, some people like to add a new thread by tying a thread directly to the short working thread using a series of secure knots. That's totally fine. If you want to do it that way, you certainly can. I'm just used to doing something a little bit different, and that's just kind of going through a couple of beads. And you want to make sure you're going through the same path that your thread had gone before. So don't weave your working thread in a different manner or else this is going to not look as uniform. You can see I just made another half hitch knot right there after going through a couple beads. If I were to continue the thread path, I just go down through the next seed bead there, and then I could go through the next seed bead and up through the Moonstone. And I could make a third little half hitch knot right after the Moonstone, just like that. and maybe go through a couple more little seed beads. And now I can clip off that working thread. All right, that's my tail thread, of course. I haven't done anything with that yet. But going back to our working side, you remember I was coming out of the seed bead directly after the pyrite. So what I'm going to do is start a little bit before that. I'm going to go through the seed bead before the pyrite bead, and then through the pyrite bead. And there are multiple ways to do this. It's not right or wrong. If you choose to do it a different way, you're going to end up at the same place in the end. And then I'm just going to make 1 half hitch knot right after the pyrite bead that I'm coming out of. Right there. And then continue through that next seed bead, which is where we want to start our beadwork again, because that's where we left off before. Then you can see I have this little tail on this side, and what I would do is I'll probably just leave this for now as I'm beading, but you could put a needle right on this little tail thread, weave that back in, making another half hitch knot or two and hiding your thread just like you did before, following the thread path in the same manner, going through a few beads and trimming that off, and it's like you never even had to add on a new thread. And I'm at the point where I left off, so I'm just going to keep going like nothing ever happened. And that's just the way that I've become comfortable ending my threads and starting my threads. And I thought maybe that'd be helpful for you to see. So let's keep beading until we have our full length of our beadwork, and then we'll definitely meet back and continue on with finishing up this bracelet. All right, and welcome back. And let's say that you've gotten to the end of your beadwork. Hopefully everything went well with that. I've got about 7 inches of beadwork here of my rope, and I'm ready to attach the end cap where I can attach the clasp. Now I've returned to the beginning of my bracelet, and I've put a needle on the tail thread, so that's where I am right now. I have a larger bead here, something that's large enough where it will fit onto an eye pin like this, but small enough where I can still get this into the beadwork, and preferably one that's not too small so that when you weave the beadwork around and tighten off this end, it's going to close that bead in place. You're never going to see it, but it's going to act as a stopper for your eye pin after you add the end cap and make your loop on the top. Before we enclose that though, what we want to do is start adding a few more seed beads to that section. That way we can tighten it up over the top of that eye pin. So I'm going to pick up 3 seed beads, and I'm coming out right after this Moonstone. I'm going to go through the next 8-0 that I get to. Then I'm going to pick up 3 more seed beads. I'll go through the pyrite, pick up 3 seed beads, then go through the next 8-0, and then pick up 3 more 11-0 seed beads, and then go through the Moonstone. So we've added 3 seed beads around that whole section. And now let's go ahead and insert our eye pin with any kind of larger stop bead. It can even be one of these additional Moonstone or pyrite beads if you have one, preferably a little bit larger than that, but if that's all you have, you can use one of those. And hold this with your thumb and your forefinger, because that eye pin will slide down on you if you're not careful. And go ahead and give that eye pin a little turn like that so it's not going to slip right out while we tighten up the beadwork. Now what we can do is just go through those new 3 seed bead sections that we had added just then. So go through the next 3 seed beads, turn, go through the next 3, and then the next 3, turn, and the goal is just to tighten this down on top of that stop bead. Go through the next 3 again to continue to tighten this up. And then this time, just go through the middle bead of each of those sets of 3. So continue on through the next 2 of that one to come out of the middle. Then go through the middle seed bead of the next section. And then the middle seed of the next. The middle seed bead of the next. And you can see how this is starting to tighten down over top of that stop bead. And keep going. And as you go, just keep tightening until there's no way that that bead could come up because this section is just too small for that bead. And you can go around again. You want to make sure this section is nice and tight. Go around that at least 2 times. And I'm going to start making some half-hitch knots. I'm going to make one right here where I'm coming out, going under the thread bridge to make a loop, passing through the loop. I'll go through another bead, make another half-hitch knot right there, go through another bead, and another bead, and then make another half-hitch knot. So just get that area nice and tight and secure so there's no way that bead is going to be able to come out. I'll go through another couple of beads and then trim that excess thread off. And now you just have this end where you have that piece of wire that's sticking out. You can straighten that back up now. And now you can add the end cap by stringing that piece of wire of your head pin through that. And then you want to pull that end cap all the way down, make sure there's no wiggle room there. And once you have that in place, hold it with your thumb and your forefinger and bend that wire over to like a 90-degree angle, just like that. And then I don't need this wire to be quite so long. About a 1/2 inch would be plenty. I'm going to clip off to about, we'll say right here. Just gonna use sight. And then this is where we can form our loop, which is where we will add our jump ring and clasp. So I'm just going to fold this over my round nose pliers to form that into a loop, just like that. I'm just gonna tuck that end down in there too. And you can always wire wrap that with the excess if you'd like to. And that's the end of our bracelet all secure, and then we can add the jump ring and clasp directly to that loop, and it's finished off nice and neat. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side basically. And it's really just the same thing on the other side, so I'll just follow the same process by picking up 3 seed beads and adding those in between all the larger beads. And then going through the middle seed beads several times, tightening that up over the top of the bead that's on the eye pin there. And then we'll be able to add our end cap just like we did to the beginning of our bracelet. And there you have it. There is the Russian spiral bracelet all set and done with the 4 different colored stripes and the seed beads, all nice and secure on the ends and finished off with these decorative bead caps. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it was easy for you to follow. Definitely have fun with this stitch that is so versatile. You could even make this into a necklace where you add chain around the back of that and leave this to be the front portion around the neck. Change up the colors if you want to. It's such a versatile stitch, the Russian spiral, where you can use it with so many different sizes and colors of beads, and now shown here done with even more than 3 colors, which is different from what I had done before. So once again, everything will be linked right down below the video. I'll tell you exactly what I'm using and how much. I'll also leave a coupon code down below to Eureka Crystal Beads if I have one available. And if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a big thumbs up. I'd greatly appreciate that. And hit that subscribe button while you're here because I'd love to have you back. Feel free to leave a comment down below. Let me know if you gave this a try or anything else you'd like to say. I'll be back again real soon. Until next time, I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. And as always, happy beading!